I'm sure there's a quote about you can't just sprinkle a little platform on it. You have to take the whole shot if you're looking to get the effect. And I'm just not sure where that analogy leads me.
Fantastic. That's a good one. Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is the fourth episode of Code to Culture, a six-part series taking a deep dive into platform engineering. There's a bit here for everybody, whether you're a developer, platform engineer, DevOps engineer, SRE, whatever. Hopefully everybody is going to benefit from this series. Now, episode 4 is called Platform as a Product. What happens when engineers become managers, product managers? God help us. Anyway, so if you are wondering where episodes 1 to 3 are, well, you can probably see them on the channels. So both myself and my channel, Cloud Therapist channel, and also same Safdar's Cloud Native FM channel, YouTube channel, is also hosting some of the episodes. We've actually decided that both the Cloud Therapist channel and Cloud Native FM are going to be sharing and alternating between the 6 episodes in this series. If you are watching this much later, well, we should have a playlist by now, if we're not being too lazy, on both our channels. So go and check that out in the playlist below on the channels. Now, this next statement is going to be painful because we are alternating the hosting duties. That's myself and Saim on all these episodes. So not even Simon and I are going to be appearing in all 6 episodes. But let me introduce you to somebody who is appearing in all 6 episodes. So I'm very jealous of her already. Our resident co-host for this series, Cortney Nickerson.
Hi, how are you? How's everyone today? It is such a pleasure to be back again, episode 4. Learning so much, hosting so many very interesting people. Glad you're jealous. You should be. Hosting with you is fantastic. Hosting with Saim is as well. I get to meet everyone and talk to everyone. So super, super pumped to kick off episode 4.
Fantastic. So Cortney, if for those of you who don't know, is the head of community at Nirmata and also for the Kaiveno project as well. She's kind of doing all that sort of stuff, both Nirmata and Kaiveno, doing everything, basically.
All of those things. Nirmata,
all of those things.
Of Kaiveno, which is an open source project incubating on the CNC of landscape. We're moving toward graduation soon, I hope. It is the go-to policy engine for all of your policies and guardrails, anything you could possibly need in that sense. Thriving community, absolutely love it. But clearly, we have the Nirmata community as well. We have loads of different things going on there, and constantly talking to platform engineers in that space too. So good fit and super exciting things going on.
Fantastic.
If it's incubating, it should be birth and not graduation, right?
That's exactly right. Could not agree more.
Let's make quick notes of that.
in my experience, it is being that painful. Yeah.
Creative projects, yes, absolutely.
Fantastic.
And exhausting, yes.
All right, cool. So that sounds all good. So, Cortney, hopefully you're all set and you're looking forward to this episode, and we're going to be asking our guests some interesting questions. Now, we have 2 fantastic guests for you guys. If you were to add up their combined experience in the IT industry, it would be, I don't know how many years, but lots of years. Okay, but anyway, let's do a quick intro to both of them. So Mark Peters is an author. More on that in a minute. He's also a DevOps Institute ambassador. He's also an advisor at Cloud Canaries. And then we have Mike Mead, who is the Chief Product and Technology Officer. Not happy with just one title. He wants 2 titles. There you go. At the Scale Factory. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Mark, I want to just pick up on you for a minute. Tell me how I said you're an author. tell me how you got to meet your co-author for the book.
So I met him through the DevOps Institute, actually, when we were both talking together and working together. But before that, when we talked about it, we talked on your show. We were talking about clouds and we were talking about platforms.
We were.
And we were chatting and going back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? We can put a book together on this. And let's do it.
Fantastic. So that's my claim to fame, guys. I got these two guys together to write a book. So shout out to Gautam Palapa, who's the co-author of the book. Hopefully we're going to have them actually on episode 6 of the series. So yeah, that's going to be good.
Equally important, the book is Mastering Enterprise Platform Engineering.
I was just going to ask you what the title was.
I have a copy behind me on the shelf, right up on there, right there.
Fantastic.
And ready to ship to you, obviously, Richard. It is.
Yes. We need something here, Mike. Yeah, Mark. Sorry, we need something. I've got space. I can find it some space somewhere. Fantastic. All right. So, and Mark, that can be found in all usual good outlets, I presume, Amazon and what have you.
Absolutely. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from anybody else. You can get direct from Packet.
Cool. All right. Don't worry about it all, guys. We'll drop you links in the description of the video so we can go and get Mark and Gotham's book. Mike, how you doing, mate?
Good, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. All right. So we're all looking forward to this. Did you know that 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet to this channel? Come on, guys. We can do better, surely. So please hit subscribe and the notification bell. It costs nothing, but it really helps me to keep making more videos for you. All right. Back to the therapy session. Okay. So the kind of first section we wanted to kind of look at was the mindset shift. So first question I had for you, Mark, if that's okay. Why choose the same model as building a product? I mean, this kind of, we're treating sort of platform engineering. People say, it's treated as a product, platform as a product, and so on. What was the idea of, who came up with the idea of kind of treating all of that as a product, as like a normal product that people would manufacture and then sell? What was the idea behind that terminology?
If you go to the original project product, I think that's Mick Kirsten, right? Who has that great book out there, and they've done a second edition. But the point is that when you try to define things in a product, that you can continually put them out there and you can move forward, and it lets you set the deadlines and the goals to move to the next stage, right? I need a platform out. And one of the challenges of the platform is I have so many things that are out there that need to be integrated, right? I have different pieces. And we want to make sure that when we're doing it, we look at that good DevOps and we do pieces of it at a time. We don't say, hey, we're going to wait until we have a full platform out there and do everything right. But we're doing the little elements of the product and making the product better.
Interesting. Okay. And Mike, what does platform as a product really mean in practice, especially when you kind of looking at it in sort of platform engineering, DevOps terms? What are we saying when we say platform as a product?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I guess I mean, right at the start when you introduced me, you talked about my title, Chief Product and Technology Officer, and that my role in the organization is sort of bringing product thinking to the technology and services that we have, and I guess in the simplest of terms, that's what it means in practice, is taking that product thinking and applying that to the engineering discipline, and in this case, building a platform. And I think there's it's not just a shift in terminology, but a shift in terminology helps, like talking about things like a feature backlog might become a roadmap, and then really thinking about how you promote and distribute that. So if you think about a platform as though it is a traditional product, what might you do in that? Okay, so you've got a whole stream of work in building it, but then also how do you get feedback from your end users or your customers, and then how do you promote that? So even if it's something is delivered internally, it's just applying that thinking and sort of shifting your practice in that direction, if that makes sense.
Okay, and Mike, I mean, I know that you've worked with a lot of customers and you're kind of engaging always with them and sort of having conversations around challenges and obviously helping them through all the journeys. So just from that kind of, from what you've seen in the field, why are sort of the traditional infrastructure or DevOps teams sometimes struggling to kind of make this, sort of mindset shift, if you like, to platform engineering, from that kind of classical DevOps to platform engineering?
Yeah, to be blunt, I think, and being hands-on as an engineer and developer myself, like I recognize this, and I've been there, and I thought it. A lot of platform engineers or DevOps engineers would see the end users of a platform, say developers, as like problem children. Or what have they done now? And in building that platform, almost it without that product thinking, it becomes almost like a kind of defensive strategy, if that makes sense, like putting
Right.
up these barriers. Oh, how do we stop a developer from doing that bad thing again? And with the product thinking or the product kind of mentality, there is a shift from protecting developers from themselves to enabling developers and making their lives easier,
Mm,
going from creating barriers to enablement with some guardrails and safety. And
right.
I think that's where a lot of the struggle comes from, is almost that cultural shift more than anything, rather than sort of changing what they're doing on a day to day, is completely rethinking about how they're engaging with their colleagues and people that are using stuff that they're building.
So if you think about it, Mike, when we do the DevOps, we talk about you build it, you run it, right? And that's really where the shift is, because we're getting two levels in kind of that platform. We're getting one level of building and running as a platform, and then one level of building and running from the platform to the next step, especially when we're talking about a development platform.
Mm.
Sometimes not as much the case for a data platform or some of the other things that we see out there. But at the same time, and I don't know how you see it, but I really see that the platforms is kind of the further steps in the DevOps. When we started DevOps, they didn't have the tools, they didn't have the sets. We had to do it all ourselves. So now our lesson learned is really how can we put it all together in a toolbox so we can get to what we want to do, which is make value for the customer,
Mm,
and not build everything in deliver it ourselves, right? And
Mm.
that's what those platforms let us do.
cool. Courtney, do you have any questions for the guys on this
Yeah,
section?
absolutely. Mark's very much pointing out something I think is super important is providing value for the customer. But I think if we take half a step back, I think the biggest question for listeners is how are organizations going about defining that customer, that ideal customer profile? Who do they usually identify? Is it always the bad kid and the bad developer that they don't want touching everything? Or are they actually discovering that it might sometimes be developers, sometimes operations, sometimes a wider business need? So maybe both of you can kind of walk us through how we are going about defining that customer to then decide what value needs to be delivered.
So that's a key part of Mike's job as that chief product officer also, right? Because you have to be able to define the product and say what the product is. And the product is what you're delivering to the customers. So how are you defining those customers as you go forward? A lot of the platforms, especially the IDPs I've been working with, are at DevX, right? They want to make the developer experience better. They want to minimize the time that a developer spends doing things that are not directly related um, to driving forward. And that's the same debate we have with a lot of the AI things that we see as we move forward as well, right? How do I get things that let me focus on what I need to focus on delivering the product, on delivering value, and not spend times on doing things like moving files back and forth or copying from Notepad to Word to Excel to something else to make it work, or doing a security check for multi-factor authentication, right? How do I make
Mm,
that easier for the individual to use? So what is the platform and what is the goal of the platform? If the goal of the platform is that DevX, then I can do things to make the developer experience better. And I look at the end user experience for my developers, how well they use the platform. Mike, I don't know if you saw something different or.
Yeah. I think obviously, developers are probably the main persona, main user of a platform. But I think there are other personas as well to consider, and mapping those out, looking at what goals and objectives each of those has, making sure that you engage with all of them to get feedback, so that in building out that developer experience, you're not overlooking the requests of the CISO, or somebody overlooking governance, FinOps aspect, the
mm,
input you might have from the finance department, and some of those might be secondary, but they are important. And so I think mapping out all of those stakeholders, all of those personas, and ensuring that they're engaged in the whole process and that you're considering them as part of the platform that's being built and operated is important. But the primary user and the primary objective of often is developer experience, making their lives easier and so forth.
In the side effect of the developer experience is that product manager experience that we were talking about, or that project manager. If everything's on the same platform, then all my metrics are in the same place. And when I use those great things, when I use the OTel across, or I use it, all the numbers that I need to show my executive board that I'm doing the right things all come from the same place. And I don't have to change them and merge them across multiple different tools and files to find out what's really happening, to get that single source of truth, observability.
Interesting. Okay. So let's have a look at the where are we now? Yeah. So that was kind of mindset. I think is really important, but there's other aspects of it that and I kind of agree and disagree with some of the areas that you guys are mentioning. But again, I'm still skeptical on platform engineering. That's why Mark will know that, because I've pushed back on the last time we were talking about this. So, but anyway, so the second section. Building a product mentality. So Mark, how have you kind of seen organizations successfully introduce product management disciplines, like kind of, the things like the research, feedback loops, prioritization of features and stuff like that? How do you kind of get that into platform teams?
So the hardest part is getting them to agree on what the definition of their platform is, right?
That's
Even
true.
to start with, of where do you have it? I know we've talked before. We've talked about platforms like, it's the chef in the kitchen, and you have all the tools, and you have the sous chef, or you have a wood shop, right? And in your wood shop, you make sure that you have everything, so you don't take multiple trips to the store to get the parts, to get the tools, and get the pieces. So you have to agree and say, this is our platform, and these are the lines of our platform. And here's our line in the sand of where we stop. One of the problems I've seen is, hey, we've delivered a development platform and we've delivered it to a third party, and they start building something, and they build an app, and then they're like, well, now we need you to come and run our app 24/7. They're like, well, we don't have anything to do with running it. That's all on you, because you built it using the good platform that we gave you. But there's a tendency to, well, I can go the next step because I'm actually running it through the services. Is it the same thing? So having that and drawing that line and knowing what the product actually is, right? When you get a laptop, you know what it is. When you order something from Amazon, you know exactly what's supposed to be in the box.
Yeah.
But the platform, because it's fuzzy, where's the edge of our box?
Right. Mike, the developer experience, how can we kind of get organizations to get that into the core sort of our platform strategy? What's kind of your take on that, and how do you advise customers on it?
I guess like to sort of take the thread that Mark started with, actually defining what that is, like what is defining what a platform is, but also what is developer experience as the sort of flip side of that, really, and where those abstraction layers are in the platform. One thing that I think that I find quite useful is actually just sit down and write down the things that it isn't, to help get that definition. Like, what aren't you going to include in the platform? What is, and then that sort of helps you narrow down what is key and what is core to that developer experience and what is really important. And then from there, start to look at the metrics and the metrics of success. So I think the most important one for me is probably something a bit like an NPS score, like how happy are the end users with it, and then looking at other metrics as well that can support key business objectives like time to first deployment, mean time to recovery, how many deployments fail, how are things running, and how is the platform performing. Stuff like uptime and whatnot, kind of secondary things that can feed into that. And then figuring out how you're going to track those metrics and engage with the end users of the platform. So maybe putting out surveys to get feedback periodically, doing some office hours, having channels open where you can collect feedback. That might be, let's say, use Slack or Teams internally, having some sort of forum where people can drop in and say, we're having a really good time with this, we're having a really bad time with that. and using that as a way to sort of, I guess, keep your finger on the pulse of
Yeah.
like how that engagement is happening with the between the people building the platform and people that are consuming it.
And just very quickly, Mike, with you again, is there kind of some common threads there that you see as you do that? Is there kind of, people kind of a customer B eventually kind of get to some very common stuff? Do you see that as well?
Yeah. I've and there's a spectrum, right? So working with really small organizations, they might do things at a smaller scale. But the interesting thing that I've noticed at the larger end, so like FTSE companies or S&P 500s, is that building a platform is quite a considerable investment in time and resources, and so forth. And often what will happen is there will be some PR internally. There will be a launch of the platform, in its first incarnation, and there'll be a whole strategy to engage with the end users, and they're almost treating it as though they were launching it as a product to the outside world, if that makes sense.
Right.
So a bit of PR, there might be an email that goes out. It'll have some branding. It might have a really cool name. And then there will be forums set up and Slack or Teams channels, and so on. And that seems to be a popular pattern for larger organizations. And I think it works. It works quite successfully as long as those communities are fostered, right? You don't just set these things up and then leave them to wither. Like actually running those office hours, having people in the channel, regular comms going out, celebrating the successes, and so on.
Right. And Mark, in terms of feedback loops, kind of people are worried sort of maybe those might be slowing things down. How can we sort of capture that sort of developer input without stalling innovation? What's your sort of idea on that?
You've always got to capture a feedback loop, right? You've always got to have the metrics, and you've got to be able to run both the quantitative sense that Mike was talking about, and then you've got to do the qualitative, which is some of those focus groups and sitting down talking to people and saying, how do you feel about this? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Right? Being able to expand in those type of things. You have to have feedback. Anybody who says they can get to the next goal without taking any feedback is blind, right?
Yeah.
They're just driving through. And that relates to something that Mike said too about the withering on the vine. A platform is going to cost you, and you're going to have to put some significant investment into it to get to that next step. If you're using that wood shop, you start out making, a birdhouse, and you don't get to the elegant cutting board with the multiple layers and the stages and the marbling until significantly later. And that's where we want to get people to, but it's going to take some time and some investment of our own resources to get there. So we need to be able to measure how that drives us forward.
Right. Courtney?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of reflecting on things that both Mike and Mark have said. I think it's super intuitive what Mike was saying about defining what dev experience actually is, because in doing so, then you're very much telling your developers or your customer what they can expect from the product that they're buying. So going back to that analogy that Mark was using about when you buy something off of Amazon, you know what is going to be in the box. I think that is such a key takeaway in order to make any of this product a mindset work. But also, obviously, I come from the community background. That is what I'm doing right now. And so kind of have a question for Mike, because I think this is something that oftentimes gets overlooked. You've done that whole product process. You now have it out in the wild. You're considering feedback loops and everything else, but then you kind of do have to cultivate that community in order to continue to grow that product and get the feedback from it and be able to dial down on another version of it that's going to be better for people. And I think a lot of times that actually takes a lot of internal cultural work. How do you actually go about doing that, and where does that fall in the priority of things?
Yeah, in some organizations, that work will fall on the shoulders of the people building it, the engineers, and often, as great as those individuals might be, it's not the core focus of what they're doing, so it often gets underserved. I think in some organizations where I've seen a lot of success, where they're building platforms both for like internal consumption, but also to the public. Maybe they're I don't know, they're building some APIs, right, that people can integrate with, and they've got somebody managing that community. That role might even be a community manager. That's where there is the most success, because often, you might have a really smart, keen individual kick something off, and then they move teams or they transition or their workload shifts, and now that community is sort of running itself for a bit and not really getting the attention it needs. So it definitely needs some dedicated resource for it, and an investment. It's something we've suffered from. Like one of my something I took on quite early when I started taking over our internal products was looking at things that we had built internally that we had published to the outside world, public on GitHub, and there were just all these GitHub repos. It was a real mess. There was all this real cool stuff people had built, but we just weren't investing in it at all. There was no time, no resources given to it. So actually, one of the things that we did was we really pared that back, and archived 80-90% of the projects, and looked at that 10-20% left on the table and said, okay, that's where our time and investment is going to go, and we could better serve that. So actually, I think one of the big lessons that I've seen is, don't take on too much, really. Like really think about that focus and then invest that time there. Because if you spread yourself too thin, then it's just going to underserve it.
Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. On to section 3, guys. So roadmaps, governance, and prioritization. So just sticking with you, Mike, for a minute. How do you kind of typically see platform teams build and communicate a roadmap? Who gets to actually put stuff on the roadmap?
Good question. Really good question. This comes up a lot in my day to day, and one of the things that I'm always conscious of is being the person in the organization that just says no. No to people saying, I've got a great idea, we should do this, we should build this, we should add this feature, and like with all of the context and sort of looking at things from a business perspective, like what the engineers want to do, like the whole picture, and looking at it and saying, okay, looks like a great idea, but actually when we look at it in the round, maybe it's not the best thing. So I think one of the things that I think is really important is thinking about business cases. So if there's a roadmap, something goes on the roadmap, it needs a business case. It can be lightweight, it can be heavyweight, but some sort of business case where we're thinking about what is the impact here, what is the value that we're going to bring, how we're going to measure that, who is going to use it, so that as if it goes on the roadmap and it's going ahead, naturally, when the roadmap gets reprioritized and sort of reviewed periodically, you've got that information to make that call about, we're not going to have enough time to get all of this out of the door within this quarter. These features are higher priority, we're going to focus on those. So I think it's key to capture that rather than just ad hoc throw stuff onto the roadmap. And who gets input? I think, like we talked earlier on about the different personas, I think making sure that you're not underserving one group of end users or people that might benefit from the system. So just making sure that you solicit input from developers, people building the platform, the business stakeholders, and so on. And so you're capturing everything, and then looking at the value of those roadmap items, and then working out how you're going to measure the return on that, and then feed that into. So it's actually quite a complicated process, but I think that sort of business case, whether it be lightweight or something heavier, is key.
Sure. And Mark, for you, scope creep, how do we, what's your advice for kind of keeping scope under control?
So first I was going to say, you mean it's not just security who gets to say no all the time anymore? I really appreciate sharing the burden with some of the product owners. But scope creep, I mean, we're sprints, we're DevOps, right? We're supposed to manage scope creep. We're supposed to have a product owner and a tech lead in our teams that say, hey, no, this is outside of the original thing. Right. Just like Mike is saying, right? We have acceptance criteria, we have use cases. If it's not doing something that's there, we move forward. In being able to clearly define for those business cases, from the the company vision to the strategic case to the next step to actually building the thing, and being able to drive those linkages both up and down the chain. Right. I have a great study if I've got 30 seconds, or not a study, but we were working with the team and they had a prioritization. They were bringing all the executives in and they were making up the prioritization for how they were going to match things up, right? And they took hours and hours and hours every quarter of going into it. And then we matched up and we said, well, how many of these things did you actually do? And the answer was they didn't get done at any level faster than the other things that were getting done in the team, right? So they were wasting all this time. But when we took those same things they were trying to do and build them out into ideas that everybody could see, like here's our overall objective, and here's our next stage, and here's where it's going to deliver money because we're delivering features and values, all of a sudden everything comes up. And they went from delivering under 20% to delivering over 90% for like the next 6 quarters. Just because you could communicate what's important and how it is and what that business case is. Like this makes the company money, which means you get extra money in your bonus at the end of the year.
Right.
This is what we want to do.
Courtney?
I think that's a fantastic point that Mark's making because so often a lot of this is a direct reflection of an open source project, right? And people are constantly asking for new features, and you have that maintainer team that has to decide because you can't build everything for everyone and then make that maintainable. But oftentimes it really does boil down to people understanding why you're saying no and then understanding what the objectives are to help them then help you innovate. So, what are your experiences in actually getting that dialogue started with people? Because I think sometimes, especially in the space, people shy away from those conversations, especially saying no. They're like, oh, security team said no, for example, and it's not always a security team. So, how do the two of you think folks can go about getting those business objectives out to developers so they understand what they should be thinking about when they're asking for a feature and how that can be innovative and helpful?
The first way is always just being clear and transparent, right? Having common boards and common things. And, when you go out as a leader, you say, these are the things we're working on. We want to improve developer experience by making versioning faster, by implementing an AI agent, and everything drives from implementing an AI agent to make versioning faster to do that. And if it's not doing one of those three things or not connected to those things, then we don't do it. In being able to show those things. Now, that doesn't mean you cut people off completely because we've all talked about, hey, we've got a sprint. Well, we want to spend 10 to 20% of our sprint time on innovation. And during that time, you can do anything you want to do. And then you can come back to the team and present it and say, hey, I think this will help in a different way that we wouldn't have thought about. In being able to use that team time to roll back in and not completely stifle people. It's just, I need most of your effort that I pay for, moving us forward in the direction to obtain our strategic objectives.
Fantastic. Okay. Section 4, guys. So metrics, adoption, and ROI. So Mark, for you, question. What does kind of success look like when an organization kind of really treats its platforms as a product?
So life is easier. You can package, you can
Are you sure
deliver.
about that?
I was waiting for it.
It is easier for the average person, right? There's always stress somewhere.
Yeah.
But a good development platform should make life easier for 90% of the developers. A good data platform should make life easier for 90% of the database people that are using it to get to that next step. It should make things faster. It should be able to accelerate our time to get to the things we actually need. Now there's still challenges and still problems, right? We can look about Netflix changing to use everything and using all their development as a platform. And they had huge burdens that you can find in some of their case studies. But when they got to it, all of a sudden everything speeds up and it goes faster. It's an initial investment that gets you to that next step. And the metrics you're using should be able to show that by being, tied to someone who can do it, having an action that's tied to it, and having the deadline that comes out of doing the metrics. That your metrics drive an action. Not just a vanity number.
Right. And Mike, in terms of adoption metrics or developer experience indicators, do you kind of, how do you see those kind of being tracked? Do you kind of use things like, onboarding time, satisfaction with them, or usage? Anybody using it? Or, I mean, we built this thing or whatever, and is anybody bothering using it? What was kind of the indicators for you?
Yeah, I think there's a few key ones. Depends on what the platform is serving. There might be some really kind of metric specific to the nature of it. Like Mark, I think Mark mentioned, like, a data platform that's going to have a very different sort of characteristic to a platform for running, serverless apps or something. I think time to first deployment of a service, or getting a new service up and running, or onboarding, whatever you might want to call that. I think that is key, um, and measuring the satisfaction of that as well. So at the end of that activity, like taking a check with the team or the person that run through that, and try to understand whether they were happy with that experience, whether there was anything that could be changed with that. I think developer satisfaction overall, having some sort of NPS score. Would they recommend it to a colleague, or to a peer? Looking at the number of active users or active things deployed on running on the platform, and measuring that is another key metric. And then a couple of things that I think from a sort of operational standpoint, really. So one is the number of support tickets and what themes they fall into. So if there are lots of bug tickets being raised all of the time, then that's probably a sign that there's some tech debt, or there's a quality issue or something going wrong there. Similarly with feature requests, if people that are using the platform are putting in lots of feature requests, and that means that they're engaging with it, they see the value of it, and there's more that they want. So I think those are two key metrics as well.
Okay, and Mark, a very quick one for you. In terms of ROI, how do kind of platform leaders typically measure ROI, or kind of justify continued investment on something?
It's got to be the same as everything else, that we're looking at that metric, that we're looking for an owner, an action, and a deadline, right? How does it happen, and how does it get us to that next stage for our ROI? Having a clear linkage to that objective of, we deliver this many products, like we delivered 8 products, this quarter, and each of those products was better than the 5 products we delivered last quarter when we didn't have it. So being able to do both that lagging indicator of where it is, and then the leading indicator of what's coming next. How much time do our people spend on the different things? Where are those help tickets that Mike mentioned? Where are those coming in to go forward? And then how fast do we get those help tickets answered, right? How are we satisfying the happiness by keeping them tuned in with what has to come next?
Right. Courtney?
Yeah, I think those are super interesting points. But I do like the fact that, Mark, you mentioned vanity metrics. And this is always something that I find interesting, mostly because I hear people constantly debating it around GitHub stars, right? Just because a project has a bunch of stars and you can buy the stars. And my question for both of you is, how do you actually measure developer happiness? Is that a vanity metric, and does it really matter?
I would connect developer happiness to other things. I would not use it as a standalone metric, but a connection to our standard of how long does it take us to deploy, how long does it take us to create, what's our mean time to restore, mean time to recover, and how does the happiness connect to those things, right? Because some things like that might increase happiness is, I made sure we had enough coffee every morning, and so the developers were more happy. But does that actually relate to how much code they were producing, or those other things? So you have to be careful when you get to those, about how does it actually relate, and how often do I measure it?
I agree with that. I also think that vanity metrics, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think they could be a good thing, as long as you look at it for what it is, right? I think especially if you're trying to get some traction or buy-in, it's the whole PR piece and marketing, right? As they say, like, even bad, some bad news is good marketing, right? So I think leaning into the vanity metrics and sort of, let's say it's GitHub stars, or it is some other metric, and playing up the sort of, how good this platform is great to get further adoption, but not losing sight of those metrics that actually really matter. Like, are people getting value from the solution? Is it working as it should be? Is the quality there? And making sure you keep an eye on those, but still, running with those vanity metrics and having that in the marketing and the PR and the internal promotion and so on.
Right. Okay.
The key to vanity metrics.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, the key to vanity metrics is, can it drive action? If you have a metric and it doesn't drive any action, then it's a vanity metric, right? If you have a stars and it doesn't do anything else, then it's a vanity metric. If you use the stars to drive or show a change in stars, changes how many people are coming into my open source project and how many of those people contribute actual good code, then maybe my stars going up is not a vanity metric because it's driving other factors that I've measured. But if you've got something that's like, hey, we've detected 65,000 people attempting to access our site over the past week, and then you go on to something else and you haven't changed anything and you haven't done anything, then it's a vanity metric because you haven't created an action that results from that metric.
Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. Let's move on to section 5. So skills, roles, and organization change. So Mark, just sticking with you, platform product manager role is kind of becoming more common. From your perspective, who kind of usually fills in that gap in in organizations that you work with and advise?
Unfortunately, usually gets stuck, right? It's usually somebody that they grab from one of the other roles or a project owner, and they say, "Hey, guess what? You're now the product manager owner." And the problem is that you don't have the training, you don't have the strategic linkage, and you don't go forward. If you think about it and you're doing it right, and some of the things Mike said along the way, and you have an idea of what knowledge and how you want to do it, and what the product actually is that you're delivering, then you can do well because product manager is a product manager is a product manager, whether it's a platform or an app or a feature. You're just kind of changing your scope as you go back and forth and look at different elements.
All right. And Mike, how do you kind of see organizations building hybrid teams that sort of combine engineering expertise with kind of user experience and product management skills? What's kind of some of the key stuff there that you see?
So the most successful platform teams that I've seen are teams that are, for want of a better phrase, full stack. So having somebody in the team thinking about QA and the quality of what's being built, some back-end developer, maybe a front-end developer if there's a UI aspect, some infrastructure engineers, a project manager, and so on, like all of the skills needed. And in those organizations where I've seen those teams pulled together, those individuals have come from parts of the organization that are going to be the customers of this platform. So there's some trust that's built. There's a bit of insight coming into this team that is building this platform to serve, fulfill this need and deliver this value. So that's where I've seen the most success. Where I've seen the least success is where a team has been assembled that sits on an ivory tower and is the sort of gatekeeper of this is what you shall and shall not do on, let's say you're building a platform on AWS, completely lock everybody out and say, you're going to run it on our platform and we're going to dictate how this is done. And if you don't like it, tough, there's nothing you can do about it. So that's the least successful. And the most successful are those cross-functional teams where you are borrowing people from the teams that are going to be consuming this platform and have them help build it because they understand where the real problems are.
Right. So not kind of so much rigidity in this golden path thing that we all kind of have to go through. And as you said, that kind of treating it as a dictatorship sort of approach, but still taking them in a direction, or taking people, or taking the organization, taking developers in a direction, but still taking into account some of the quirks and things like that. And Mark, this goes back to our conversation well over a year ago when I said developers are artistes, right? So you kind of, they like their own, they got quirks, they got like their own stuff, and you can't kind of go and tell them, no, you can't use C++ anymore. It's all Rust and C, Python or whatever now. So I think I like this approach. I like sort of what Mike is saying about, not being, it's not so rigid. It's not so much of a sort of a dictatorship in how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be rigid, but you're split, right? Yeah, I need my artists, but I also need the standard stuff done. I need my Michelin star meal, but at the same time, I also need a hamburger and fries. So there's some days that you just got to roll up the sleeves and do the work.
Yeah.
In a lot of these companies out there, the things they're building, even with the platforms, are just, I got to roll up the sleeves and do the work and keep the apps running. And So how do I balance that, right? I think some people are truly artists and some people are workmen. And sometimes the workman can be an artist and sometimes the artist can be a workman. But this has been a long running debate in software. We even saw this
Yeah.
in the initial guys that were running games for Atari, right? That they got
Mm.
upset that they couldn't have their names on the initial software. So maybe date myself, but um,
It's all right. We're all fans of that period, so don't worry. This I am anyway.
there,
Courtney, anything from you?
if you want to go down a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
you can look at a guy named Nick Dyer Weatherford, who did a bunch of Marxist comparisons about the digital economy and how software becomes, and
Brilliant.
code production becomes labor
Yeah.
because you're producing a regular item.
Yeah.
So rabbit hole completely, but it's out there.
Right. Courtney, anything from you?
And thinking about what Mike was saying about those cross-functional teams, and I absolutely adore the fact that the first cross-functional team member that you mentioned was QA. I'm a big proponent that QA folks make sometimes the best platform engineers because they're so used to bouncing back and forth between different people and having to listen to their needs, and then give them or do the work to give them things that are necessary to get the job done. But kind of thinking about future because all of these people want to grow. Right? You become part of a platform team, but you want to grow professionally, especially the ones that are artistes. What does that career path look like for people once they've joined a platform team? Where are they going to
Mm.
grow to next, and where do you see that moving, especially in larger companies that are product minded?
Interesting. Yeah, I think that one's going to go on for a while, that particular discussion, I think. Okay, let's move on to section 6. So build or buy, essentially your sort of ecosystem or platform. So Mike, to you, how do you kind of typically see organizations decide what to build internally themselves and what kind of bring in vendors and open source projects with?
Um, Really good question. And if anybody asks me if somebody asks me for advice on this, my recommendation is usually to lean into assuming a platform is going to be built on a particular on a cloud, to lean into the managed services of that cloud provider,
Mm.
unless there is a good reason not to. Maybe that managed service it doesn't have a feature or it doesn't meet a compliance requirement or so on. So doing that first because I mean, it's effectively buying that solution, but buying from the cloud vendor that you are running the thing on anyway is the easiest path forward, and it's gonna get things up and running quickly. And I think the most important thing for me is that anything you build, you now have to maintain.
Mm.
So there is this trade-off between like, well, okay, well, if we can take on this service, if we can buy in this platform, it's something there's a cost to it, but we don't have to maintain it. And considering that really, I think that's the main thing really is just looking at I guess what the core for me the core of the platform is like what purpose are you serving,
Mm.
and having the team focused on that element, and then where you can buy in everything around it rather than having to build everything from the ground up.
Okay.
Um,
And just a
What
side
the,
question. Sorry, I was just going to ask, just as a side question to that, Mike, is there kind of enough off-the-shelf platform engineering products now? I mean, we kind of talk platform engineering all the time, but is there actually like products that people can go and buy off the shelf and say, this is kind of, I don't know, the kind of my starting point, let's, I don't want to do everything myself. I want to sort of some of it prepackaged, ready to go,
yeah.
kind of put it together.
I guess right at the start with Mark talked about the definition of a platform, and I think it comes back to that like what is the platform you're building? If it's quite a thin service layer,
Mm.
then yes, you can go and buy and run a third party solution to do that. But if the scope of it is quite broad and it's doing a lot of things, then there is at least going to be some integration work. So it might be actually you can buy a couple of services or a couple of products, and you've got a couple of managed services from the cloud provider, and you can plug all of that together,
Mm.
and that's your platform. It's an integration story, and there is a bit of development that is going to have to happen in and around that. So
Mm.
even though you are buying it, there is still some stuff you're going to have to build, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sorry, Mark, you were
I
going to
would
come in.
say
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as we look at integrating these commercial tools and platforms, I think the build leans more heavily on the B2B type aspects. People who are build things to sell for other businesses. If you're selling directly to a consumer, you can buy someone else's platform because your real role is to get something out to that consumer
Yeah.
quickly, right? If I'm selling shoes, if I'm selling something else, if I'm selling database management systems and integration, then I want to have my own platform because there's some fairly unique things I'm going to do, right? A SAP company, a Salesforce company wants to kind of use their own platform because they're getting something out to other businesses to use their products. So they may have some specialized needs. If Nike is using, how do I get the next shoe designing app? It's not really the core function of their business. I can buy it because my business isn't going to be hurt if I use somebody else's platform or if I use an Amazon or Azure or Google, managed services to build my app so that customers can make their own shoes.
Courtney, anything from you?
You know, I haven't actually heard anybody put it in the terminology that Mark just put it in, but I think that makes complete and total sense, actually. But also kind of looking at the SaaS and consumer product teams out there, we see them constantly struggling to get their product out the door to people because there seems to be a tendency to want or need to build something much more specific to people's needs. What can we and should we be learning from that process?
We should be showing them the metrics, right? And we should be showing them if you want to deliver it to a consumer, here are the things you need to do faster to deliver value. If you want to deliver it to another business, here are the things you need to do faster to deliver value. So those net promoter scores, those how much time did we spend doing this? What did we spend doing, A versus doing B to get to that next stage? In the internal platforms, how happy are our people? How much turnover do we have since we switched to this platform? How many people are complaining about X, Y, and Z? How often do even things get stuck? Do we have a lot of stories that stay in the same stage because we have a problem with delivering a feature, delivering branching, or with a conversion from our initial coding to our testing, right? Is there a problem with the platform interlap or not enough resources at one stage of the platform tools that we're using, which I've seen before as well, right? That we have 100 gig for, and I'm using the wrong numbers, but 100 gig for versioning, but only 2 gigs for active testing, right? And it throttles, and then we can't get to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a lot of what I'm sort of hearing from you guys is kind of there's a lot of sort of parameters to this, and you kind of have to be a little bit more subtle and not so sort of 90-degree sort of corners on things. Would you kind of agree with that? It's kind of that what Mike said about sort of having a little bit more flexibility, but also Mark, you said there's something that we're after. It's like a standard approach that we still want to do, right? Would you guys agree with that? Does that kind of make sense?
One of the best quotes I ever heard from a boss when I was very young in my career was, remember, just because it's not being done your way doesn't mean it's not being done. And there's a lot of that with platform.
Good boss.
Right? That we can get there and we can have options to get there, but we've got to have our product managers be flexible. We've got to have our CTOs be flexible. We've got to have our CISOs be flexible, our CEOs be flexible. And then we've got to have the numbers to show them that we're getting the ROI, even when we're flexible in those other areas.
Yeah. And it also doesn't need to be perfect. I think sometimes there's a strive as technologists to strive for perfection. There is a better way of doing this. There is this is going to give us the best uptime or the most performance or whatever. But I think getting to a place where you can deliver a solution earlier and start delivering some value much quicker, with it being I'm not saying, like a pile of junk, but a less than perfect solution. Getting it in front of the end users and getting that feedback means then you can iterate on that. And it might be later on that third-party solution you built that got you 90% of the way there does need to be replaced with something custom. But now you can build a business case for that. Now you can demonstrate the ROI of going off and building that. And that gives you the feedback loop for it. So I think often, we strive for this perfection and like relaxing on that is a good thing, and saying it can be a bit rough around the edges. It can, be less than perfect, and it's okay.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Perfect
I
is
mean,
the enemy of good.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm certainly seeing a lot of kind of not off the shelf but managed service kind of solutions coming in that space as well. So that's kind of we'll run it and do it for you and everything, and you just consume it. So you don't actually have to get it yourself off the shelf and manage it yourself and run it yourself, but actually somebody else will do it for you as well. So that's quite interesting.
One of the great solutions I saw recently, and I forget the name of the company, but they were using their local LLM, right, and their local managed rules and their AI agent that would look at your name and your title when you logged in, what your position was, and manage how often you were using the different apps, and then suggest things for you. Like,
Mm.
I see that you've been in GitLab using this particular thing for 30 minutes. The average person in your position only does that for 7 minutes. Can I point you to some training or some videos that might help you with X, Y, and Z?
Interesting.
Right?
That's
Right.
In that kind of thing where you can get the metrics if you have a platform, if you
Yeah.
have the tools, and that you can point people to the right area to do that optimization.
Right. Very good. All right. So section 7, looking ahead. Courtney, do you want to start with any questions that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mark leads us into that perfectly with his use case of an LLM and an agent here. Because what I really want to know about is platform as a product model and how you think that AI and automation is going to reshape this as we move forward. Specifically, are we moving from self-managing to self-optimizing platforms? If so, what is that going to look like? If not, why not?
Self-managing to self-optimizing to AI. Is AI going to make it better? Yes, probably. Is it going to make some elements faster? Yes, probably. Is it going to screw up royally and have some massive news coverage of the platform that died? Yeah, probably. I point to as a security guy, there was a Neon app that came out a week or two ago, and the company was paying people 30 cents a call to talk to people and record all their calls and dump it into their LLM, or $30 a month if you are an active user and you only talk to people on the other Neon app, right? And that's not what you want. You don't want to get into that, but you want to have enough of those agents that can point you to the training you need, that can help you find the things, and that can be structured in the right place. Because in the most inventive scenario, I want a section of that platform where my developers work, where it only looks at what my developers are doing, and where it only looks at what my product managers are doing from a business sense, and maybe only what my logistics guys are doing in moving and shipping stuff back and forth. It still goes on my platform to make those elements better. Uh, so yeah, it makes things better, and there's going to be problems, but we'll work through those.
And Mike, from a product ownership and accountability mindset, how do you think that AI is going to affect us in the upcoming year?
Um, I significantly. I think as it stands right now in the platform landscape, there's probably more. There's a lot more hype than reality. I think a lot of people are talking about the potential of what could be done, and there are some tools and things emerging to allow developers to be self-service, more self have more self-service capability and achieve their outcomes by using those tools rather than directly interacting with people managing and running a platform. But I think the key thing really is coming back to, I guess, governance for this. I think organizations that haven't thought about how they govern um, and manage their platform and the usage of it will have a bad time transitioning to a world where elements of AI are coming into that. Thinking about where those boundaries are and how you are going to measure and uh, I guess, sort of understand how these things are performing, right? So if you're not doing that today, if you don't have those metrics in the platform, then swapping out components with agents and some automated tooling is just going to um, create a nightmare for everybody, and things will go wrong, and you're not going to know where that is. So I think it comes back to the question of, is it delivering value? I mean, I would actually ask that question outright of like, adding AI into a platform? Is it going to deliver value at all, or are people just looking to introduce a solution into a space where there isn't really a problem for it? I think there generally is some cases where there is value for it, but not. I don't. It's not a panacea. It's not going to be a silver bullet, right? And change the world here.
What was the number? 70% of AI projects collapse before they ever reach a first deliverable, because they never get to the point where they can do what's intended, because people don't know what the strategic objective is. They just know, hey, I need that shiny AI stuff. There's a great video to point to another video. The gentleman who wrote Sooner, Safer, Happier did a certified really AI practitioner at the DevOps Enterprise Summit conference. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think there was a report
humorous.
from MIT. I think they did recently. They asked, I don't know how many CIOs and about their. I think it was actually going quite viral on LinkedIn recently, and the response was 95% of AI projects are actually failing. They're not going beyond.
That's even worse than the 70, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Can you imagine if 95% of your code failed?
Well, give it some time. It's all being produced by AI.
Yeah. The way I see it, it's like having a 5-year-old on your team that has absorbed all of the knowledge in the world. So they're extremely knowledgeable, but they're still a 5-year-old, and so and that's how you should treat them. And it's like, oh, do we really want the 5-year-old to like run loose on the platform? Maybe there are some tasks that we can give this 5-year-old, and it'll be okay, but not everything.
Oh, it's a great
The
analogy
answer
because
is
also we look at it like it's a 5-year-old. We're like, oh wow, look at that. Look how fast it learned how to do that. It's so cool. It's so great. And then you really look at it and it's like, but it's not exactly right. But they're on the right track, right? It's the
Yes.
same. You have the same visceral response as you would to a 5-year-old. But I think Mark makes a really good point as well. Oftentimes people want the new shiny thing, but they haven't actually critically thought about the use case for it. Right? Do I actually have a business use case for this? And is whatever it is that I'm looking at going to actually solve that use case? And a lot of times people are just especially with AI, my experiences, they're just jumping in and they
Yeah.
haven't actually defined what their need is and then critically looking at it like they would any other tool. Right? Any other tool, you think what your business case is, and then you do a proof of concept to see if it meets that business case. Then you make your decision. And AI, we've kind of skipped that process a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
so.
think I think one great place to look is toil within the platform team. Maybe there's an activity periodically where you do an upgrade, and there's all these configuration files that need rewriting or restructuring, and it's looking at those toil tasks and going, oh, actually, do you know what? If we feed those configuration files into an LLM and it can do the work for us, it can save a whole bunch of time. And so, but again, that comes down to the use case, right? Think about those use cases first rather than trying to shoehorn an AI technology in. But I think toil is a really good place to look for optimizations.
Mark, you were going to come in with something?
It's a longer thought and probably a couple of beers along the way, but the generative adversarial AIs, right, that talk to each other and make better code until you get something far down the line that's completely different from what you asked for. But it only matters if you have that strategic objective, right? Otherwise, the AIs write code, write code, write code. And soon enough, the code that your two AI agents that were talking to each other does is cutting off their shackles and, running humanity and not, wait, I just wanted to sell shoes. But
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just final thoughts then, guys. So, Mark, to you first. If you could offer one piece of advice to teams, just kind of starting on that sort of platform as a product sort of journey, what can you advise them on?
It's the same as everything else. It's got to support your objective. It's got to make money. You need something that's accountable, something that's owned, something that has deadlines, and treat it as something else. If I'm writing an app, I know when I deliver that app and when it makes money. If I run a platform, if it makes my developers better, we're still making an app, and I need to know when that app makes money. And I need to know that it's more with that platform in place than when we were all doing it on our own.
All right, Mike?
I would say engage with people. So engage with end users, engage with customers. Don't build something in isolation. Um, Something that is in not perfect, but delivers value to an end user and is something that they want is better than something that is perfect that they don't want. That would be my advice.
Excellent. All right. Well, guys, we're at the end. I'll just quote something because somebody sent me this as I think it was in a newsletter or something, but I just thought it was quite interesting to read it out. So somebody said, platform engineering is hard, but that's why it's worth it. So there you go. All right. I may not agree with that statement fully, but still, but I just thought we'll end on that note. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, big thank you to our fantastic guests. So Mark and Mike, thank you very much. There's been some really great insights today. So much packed into such little time, and I'm sure we could go on talking for ages about it. Is there any way we can bottle this up, Cortney? I'm not sure. It's kind of put it in a bottle and sell it. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I mean, if we're delivering value and we've got the business
It's a
objective,
product. It's a product.
then it becomes a product, just like both Mark and Mike have defined. I think we can. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Yeah, so I think that'll be something to do maybe. We'll see. we can get Mark and Mike to kind of come up with a product for us and we can bottle it up and sell it. Okay. Thank you also to my fantastic co-host Cortney. Really appreciate you kind of agreeing to do this series with us, and we'll be with us until hopefully the last episode. That'll be quite cool to have you on. So really appreciate you coming on again. That's been great to have you on. All the links, guys, for everything that we've talked about, for Mark, his book, Mike, Scale Factory, how they can help you guys out with migrations and various other things, will be in the description of this video. I hope you've all enjoyed this particular episode. If you haven't seen the rest of the episodes of the series, please do go and watch them on both my channel and Cloud Native FM, same Substance channel. If you're watching these, as we said later, there's a playlist somewhere, so go and check that out on both our channels. What we're going to be doing, I think, is linking all 6 episodes into the playlist. So whichever channel you go to on, you can see all 6 episodes. Please don't forget to subscribe to support me. It costs you guys nothing, but it's really valuable for me. So I'd really appreciate you doing that. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.